Thank you, Chelsea. I have to say, I love Celine Dion's Oh Holy Night, and that's as close as I can get in real life. I'll never see her in person, so thank you. One more round of applause, yeah. I wish I could do that. That's one of my favorite Christmas songs. So good morning, everyone. This is almost Christmas. The next time we gather here will be after Christmas, so this is like the time where I know everyone is busy doing last-minute Christmas shopping, sending off Christmas cards, hoping and crossing your fingers will get there before Christmas, wrapping presents, all those things. But also it's the time to really ground ourselves in what Christmas is, and I think to think about what was God trying to accomplish through Christmas, through the birth of Jesus. So I'm actually blending kind of a Christmas message together with the last point in our vision statement, which is about inheritance. So the title of my message is The Culture of Inheritance. We missed a couple of Sundays, so we're running out of time. But actually, I found that this culture of inheritance fits so well with the idea of Christmas. So it works. I don't know about you, but I was recognizing in myself, and I shared this with Mike the other day and a couple of people, but I realized that in my relationship with Christmas, I have 3 very different and separate categories of how I relate with Christmas. And I don't know if I should say unfortunately, but definitely the one that takes up most of my time is the organizational side of Christmas. Events and, if we want to send Christmas cards, what day do we have to have our picture taken in order to have it ready, to have the cards for them to get there on time for Christmas, and how many cousins do we have to buy for, and how are we going to, get it all done. And there's parts of that are fun. We had a little ladies' night Christmas party, White Elephant, last night, and that was really, really enjoyable. And that fits in that category. But I wouldn't say it has much to do with the purpose of Christmas, or how often do I think to invite God into my life while I'm writing so many addresses on Christmas cards. Maybe some people can pull that off. I didn't. But that's one of my relationships with Christmas. The other kind of box that I go into is of relaxation and family time, because life is so busy for so much of the year, but I feel like Christmas is the one time where I can set aside a week or a week and a half. Maybe I can squeeze 2 weeks out of it and just kind of forget the rest of the world and just be fully present with my family, my parents, my extended family. We go to visit my parents in Missouri. It's out in nature. It's so peaceful. It's kind of magical. And I really, really, really enjoy that part of Christmas. But I also recognize that without really being intentional, it's something really special, and it's something really valuable and important, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with the purpose and meaning of Christmas either, unless we're really intentional to kind of have that conversation as a family and bring it in. And then the other box that I go into about Christmas is, for myself, often takes, unfortunately, the least amount of my focus and time and energy, which is what is the true meaning of Christmas? Taking that time to really reflect and to not just sing jingle bells and not even just to sing Oh Holy Night, but where does all this come from and why do we celebrate it? You know, there's that phrase, Jesus is the reason for the season. And he is. But I think that even that is a somewhat superficial level of understanding the deep, true meaning of Christmas. So I don't know if you can relate with that. I would love for all of those experiences of Christmas to be integrated and one, and that God would be at the center of it. I'm still working on it, but in the meantime, I do feel like this week before we celebrate Christmas and Jesus' birth, is my time to really settle into God and God's heart and God's purpose and who Jesus was and what Jesus came to do. So I have some quotes. I have some things prepared. It's not super organized, so I may go back and forth between some slides, but I hope you can stay with me. Where shall I start? I'm going to start with some quotes from the founder of our faith, Reverend and Mrs. Moon. Okay. Is there a tradition of the love of God here on earth? Jesus came to teach this tradition. The true meaning of Christmas is the tradition of the true love of God. What is love? What is the love of God from the point of view of Christianity? This world we live in is truly a wilderness, for there is no taste of the love of God in it. People hardly have a concept of the love of God. In this wilderness, I came to cry out for the love of God. In itself, this is a historical mission. I am proclaiming in this wilderness how the love of God should be. We are gathered to celebrate the true Christmas because we know God and his purpose. We know Jesus' purpose and intention for coming to this world. Will fruitcake and ice cream make a Merry Christmas? The true content of Christmas is the amount of love you gave during the year. That is far more dazzling than any amount of decorations. So on Friday night, we took our family to the Blossoms of Light at the Botanical Gardens. And we had never been to that. We actually, I think it was last year in the winter, we drove to City Cheeseman Park. And we walked up to the gates at the back entrance and we looked in to all the lights, but of course didn't pay to go in and see everything. So we just kind of glanced at it. But this year, we did the thing. We went in and we walked through all the trails and dazzling light shows. And I don't think I've actually ever seen so many Christmas lights before in my whole life. So that was a dazzling amount of decorations. And it was fun. I'm happy we did it. The kids, we got them hot chocolate. We had a lovely time. But I have to say, it didn't really move me. I didn't feel like that I knew God better because I had gone to the Botanical Gardens to see the lights. I was reflecting and thinking, I think that truly the most beautiful moments are of when I experience love and peace in my family and in sharing that love with others. And I can really relate to this. The amount of love you gave during the year is the true content of Christmas. And And I'm going to now go to Jesus' words. So we're going to go backwards. Okay. So why did Jesus come? We talk about Jesus' birth, and it was not only this single moment in time, the nativity, and the baby in the manger, and the star, and the 3 wise men, and the shepherds. But this moment was a moment that God had been waiting for in eager anticipation for thousands of years. God was preparing the Jewish people. God was preparing an environment that Jesus could be welcomed into. Through all of the old saints and sages from Noah's time, through Moses' time, Elijah, all of that was just building up to this one moment where God could send his pure, untainted Son to this earth. And what was he here to do? You know, there's a lot of quotes in the Bible about how Jesus is the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace. We should all listen to Handel's Messiah after this. I love that too. But actually, God wasn't sending Jesus just to be that. Jesus was supposed to be the first, but he wasn't supposed to be the only, ever, the last true Son of God. God was sending Jesus to be the first, the example. And Jesus said it himself many times. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. This is a tough quote, isn't it? How can I be perfect? I'm so imperfect in so many ways. So what is Jesus saying here? That I don't have any flaws, that I never make any mistakes. I think that what Jesus is talking about here is perfection of love. That we understand God's heart and God's love, and then we grow that within ourselves. Perfection of love doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. This is from John 12:15. And you know this story. This is right before Jesus was betrayed and went to the cross. And he was meeting with his disciples. And he began to wash their feet. And they were like, Lord, why are you doing this? It's me who should be washing your feet. But Jesus did it anyway. And when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. And this is, in some ways, it's a very simple story of one thing that Jesus did, but Jesus didn't have a lot of time. I think Jesus was thinking, what can I do tonight before I have to leave? What message can I leave with God's children? I'm an example for you. I do this to show you what you do unto others. So I think that God's hope in Christmas was, yes, that Jesus is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. But he hoped that we would inherit the love of Jesus and the love of God. Actually, the love of God comes first. The only reason Jesus could do what he did, the only reason he could forgive the people who crucified him, the people who wanted to stone him, even his disciples who at times were a little bit dense and didn't get the parables. They didn't understand everything that Jesus was trying to say. The only reason Jesus could love all of them so completely and so unconditionally is because he knew God's heart. So there's nothing of his self there. There's no, you idiots, why do you do this to me? Can't you see I'm trying to help you, Jerusalem? I'm sure that feeling might have come, but he didn't dwell on it. He didn't act on it. Instead, he kept connecting to God's love for his children and committed to showing that up until the very end. So I think that this is something that Reverend and Mrs. Moon understood very well about Jesus. The true meaning of Christmas is the tradition of the true love of God. God sent Jesus to be that pure, untainted example of love, and that through Jesus we would inherit that and display that to others. Because our true parents understood that, they could then share that with us today. So that leads me to our vision statement. This is the last point of our vision statement. We are a community that embodies a legacy of living for the sake of others and building the kingdom of heaven here on earth, that our founders, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, whom we call the true parents, have passed on to us. So another way of saying the purpose of Christmas, or why God sent Jesus in the first place, was that through true love, the kingdom of heaven would be established not only in heaven, but here on earth. It's in the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's like the whole point of everything. And God sent Jesus to be that person, to spark it, to spread it. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we had another pastor, Joe Young. He came from Miami, Florida, and he gave a seminar here. And it was so wonderful to hear from him. If you missed it, come next time. We'll have him again. But something that I really loved that he shared with us is that when you know your value as God's son or daughter, when you know who you are and you claim that, you also claim a little slice of the kingdom of heaven right here where you are. We might not see that everywhere yet. But when you know God, you know God's heart, and you can say, I am God's son or daughter, it's like you have laid claim to a little piece of this earth as God's. And this is your little slice of the kingdom of heaven. And our job, our mission is to just expand that a little bit. Every day or every year in our relationships. To take the love that Jesus showed us, that our true parents have shown us, and to expand that in this world. So when I think about what Christmas is, at least this year, this is the point that I'm reflecting on, is not only how can I celebrate it with the music and the ornaments and the family time and the presents. But actually, God is calling me to do something too. That this kingdom of heaven on earth that God sent Jesus to begin needs to be completed, but Jesus can't do it all by himself. Jesus told us that, because I'm an example for you to follow. So I see Christmas almost as a calling for myself, to check myself. How much love did I give throughout this year? And how, in this week between Christmas and New Year's, how can I prepare myself to give more next year? How can I expand this little slice of the kingdom of heaven that God can claim for himself? That is my simple message this year. But I hope that, if nothing else, it can spark you to take this few days between now and Christmas morning to reflect on your own experiences of Christmas, maybe where we've gotten a little bit too caught up in the Christmas train, Christmas commercials, Christmas activity, but also what are the things that really ground us in God? What are the things that really ground us in who Jesus is and who I am and what is my purpose in my life? So I really hope that all of you have a wonderful Christmas with your families, your friends. And next week, Roger will be sharing also a Christmas message the day after Christmas. So please come and enjoy that as well. And join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for such a beautiful December morning as we reflect on who you are and that you are love. We know that you sent Jesus with such an incredible abundance of love that you wanted to share with all of your children in this earth. God, you love us so unconditionally. We unfortunately don't even recognize it so much. We've been lost in the wilderness, as Reverend Moon said. We've been walking in the wilderness that we don't even recognize your love most of the time. But you have such an abundance that you want to share with us, that you want us to recognize. And I know that when we have an experience of being touched by your love, it automatically becomes a desire to return that love and to express that love to others. So if nothing else, my prayer this morning is that we can set aside our experiences of tainted love, of false love, of things that we thought were love but ended up breaking our hearts, and really believe that your love is pure and true and wholesome and eternal, and that we were created in that love and we will return to that love. So the question is, how can I find that in this life today and share that with others? God, I know that's what your sincerest hope is, for all of the children of this world to experience your love. We want to inherit that heart from you, from Jesus, from our true parents. And I pray we can go into this week with that determination. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, Blessed and Show family. Amen, and achu. Thank you, everybody.